Thank you so much for joining us again. This is Politics Tonight, where we dig beyond the headlines. And tonight I'm speaking with a political scientist and associate professor at the Institute of African and Diaspora Studies, University of Lagos, Kayode Eesuola, for discussion on the coup in Niger Republic as the junta agrees to negotiate with ECOWAS. Prof, since ECOWAS also promised to prioritize diplomacy over force, will you say with finality that war will now be avoided?
I personally, I have always felt that there will not be war. I felt very strongly that there will not be war. That's my personal feeling, and I'm consistent about it. And I can say, in response to your question, that there still will not be war. But I said it, and I'm saying it based on certain backgrounds that I've been able to create for you today. One, there is the option of diplomacy, and much more importantly, there are internal national structures within West Africa that connect people sociologically. And those structures can be used, are readily available for use in resolving conflict, crisis, and contradictions. I believe so much in those structures, as you have seen them demonstrate action now, that I know that there will not be war. Given the present circumstance, I can assure you, ultimately, something will come out from the discussions that we're going to have. It may not be what ECOWAS perfectly wants. It may also not be what the juntas perfectly want. It may also not be what the Western countries also perfectly want. But there must be a middle line, in which case no party would feel wounded. Remember, power lies in the barrel of the gun, but there is also power in the collectivity of the international forces too. Either side, there is power. So what we need to do is negotiate. And when we negotiate, there will be war.
Another angle I would like us to look into is this economic sanctions imposed by ECOWAS having an impact on the people rather than the coup plotters. Can sanctions really dissuade the coup plotters, Prof?
Well, sometimes some things don't follow logic. If you look at the logic of it, sanctions will not appeal to anybody in any way. I think sanctions are more of ways of making statements of opposition than the logic of it. When you sanction the people, the Niger country, for instance, on electricity, for instance, on border closure, who are the people who suffer at the receiving end? It is a common person like you and I who have no capacity to carry gun, who have no capacity to also be in the political arena where accusations of theft and stealing are being levied. So the trader on the street, the school children, the professionals like you and I who go to their offices to contribute their quota to the development of the system are always at the receiving end of these sanctions. So there is no logic there at all. But again, life is not all about logic. It's just about ECOWAS making a statement by that sanction so that it will not be said that it is in support of that. I'm sure part of the talks will be for ECOWAS also to reconsider these sanctions, because the sanctions affect people across disciplines and across classes. If you understand Niger, I know that it shares about 5 or 6 land borders with Nigeria. The movement of goods and services across these borders is a huge economic investment on the part of not only Niger, but also Nigeria in this, under this circumstance. So if you create a sanction in which the borders are closed, people cannot move across anymore, and of course, there's no electricity in the other part of the place, you are not actually affecting the military junta, you are sincerely affecting the lives of the peoples in plural, in that situation of Niger as well as in Nigeria. It is not going to end well at all. I'm sure they're going to negotiate that on the table and have a way of resolving it.
But how concerned is ECOWAS, or should ECOWAS be, that these sanctions may earn the coup plotters the support of Nigerians?
Well, I think ECOWAS should be seriously concerned. As a community, there will be position papers, disagreements, and agreements also from the member states. The way ECOWAS works, I know it. I know that each country will make its own position known on the issue of sanctions, border closures, going to war, creating special forces, and all this stuff. And each of the country, mark you, will be coming with the position that best serves their own national interest beyond the collective called ECOWAS. So if this is logical in any way, you know that ECOWAS may not be as united on all those fronts as we see them on the pages of paper. And that internal peculiarity will force them not to take very sacrosanct position, but be reflexive and flexible towards the internal divisions, well, maybe not divisions, peculiarities of some of these states that are involved in the situation.
So with the coup leaders now consolidating their position with appointment of a prime minister and the formation of a cabinet, do you see them restoring constitutional order in Niger anytime soon?
I think we should not preempt the negotiation. There is nothing that has been done that is out of place that cannot be reversed or amended after the negotiation. What is critical for us to know at this point is that the coup plotters, the junta, have made it clear that they mean business. And on the table, they have put the cards of why they did what they did. And one thing that you cannot take away from this is that they enjoy legitimacy from their people, wrongly or rightly. But there is clear indication that they enjoy legitimacy from their people. That being stated, by the time the teams that will negotiate move in, they will have discussions based on certain parameters and yardsticks, based on certain structures and institutions, and they will arrive at decisions, either to reverse or amend. But we cannot preempt. Good luck to those who are going to negotiate. We only wish ECOWAS the best under these circumstances.
So, Prof, many people just like you are advising against the use of force. And earlier, severally on the show tonight, you've talked about other options available to ECOWAS. Now, what other options has ECOWAS got in this situation?
There are 1,000,001 options, and some of the options are currently being used. I've said it before, we have relied on quasi-force delegation. We are now beginning to see the impact of sociological intervention in terms of using cultural, linguistic, and religious structures to intervene. These are two approaches, approaches that we have, options, if you will. I am against the use of force because force has not demonstrated the monopoly of restoring normalcy in any part of the world. There are scholars who strongly feel that Our approach to terrorism in West Africa has been force-based, and that is why this saga has been escalating. Of course, that can be argued. It's a position that can be contested. But it also speaks to the fact that force alone cannot be the only option under several circumstances. So force should be ruled out. It should not be totally ruled out. It should be at the extreme parts, okay, of whatever is going to happen. But negotiation first, because in most cases, when you use force, you engage army, you engage in war and conflict, you will ultimately come back to the table. And this exemplifies what goes on almost everywhere in the world. People will have been killed, property destroyed, economy ruined. For solution, they will still come back to the negotiating table. So I think it's a good thing that we are not foreclosing the possibility of resolving this through dialogue, and more importantly, using existing autochthonous sociological structures that exist in Africa. I think they work, and it's high time we began to rely on them more than mere use of force. That's a point to take from this discussion.
So let's now talk about rising coups in West Africa. What we can say is responsible, and are people losing interest in democracy?
Well, there's a Yoruba proverb that says, "Ọlọ́run má jẹ́ ká jẹ oúnjẹ ọ̀tá ẹni, ṣùgbọ́n ọ̀rẹ́ ò dáná." The closest interpretation I can give to that in English is that if you say God forbids you from eating the meal of your enemy, or your friend refuses to make meal for you, so you'll be forced to eat it. I don't think there's anybody who does not know that democracy is good in theory. It promotes freedom. It's supposed to be, again, in theory, the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. You can say what you want to say. You have freedom of movement, freedom of association. In theory, therefore, everybody knows, and this everybody includes the citizens of Niger, Chad, Mali, and Burkina Faso, as well as Nigeria. They know that democracy is good. However, when democracy begins to produce toxins that destroy the very things that it has promised the people, people will seek alternative. Definitely. They will not only seek alternative, they will also legitimize alternative. At a particular point of interview, I told some people that what we see in West Africa as at now is what I tagged action and reaction of extreme use of power. When the government decides to use power to the extreme in whichever way you can think about it, extreme in allocating resources to themselves, extreme in playing the game of who gets what, when, and how, all to themselves, extreme in impoverizing the people, extreme in every other aspect. The state has the power to do it. But power does not lie only in the hand of the state. You have the soldiers who also have the power of the gun. The power can be used to topple government. That is what we have seen across these francophone countries that are affected in West Africa. The soldiers have their power, the people also have their power, in which case they can rebel and cause such uprising that can topple government. So again, like Fela Anikulapo says, everybody has its power everywhere. All the sectors in the society have their power. None should use power in the extreme. The military should not use power in the extreme. The civilian government should not use power in the extreme. The people should not use power in the extreme because there will be counter reactions to powers when they are used. I think that theoretically explains what you see in West Africa. So people, because the democracy that they've been under has not really given them what in theory it promised them, people are fast losing hope in democracy. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. People do not believe in democratic government anymore. In saying this, I'm not doing justification, I'm doing explanation. And of course, there's no way you will not give this explanation if you see what citizens of Niger are saying, citizens of Burkina Faso are saying, citizens of Chad are saying, citizens of Mali are saying. People represent democracy. If the same people are saying we don't want, then if democracy is all about them and for them, and the same people are saying they don't want, there's something fundamentally wrong. And I think I alluded to this in my the earlier part of our discussion, that ECOWAS should go beyond this reactionary position. Just go and send delegates and start negotiating whenever there are coups. No, that is correct to do whenever there is an action. But beyond it, you should be interested in governance and security of the people inside each member state. Fill their pulse, fill the polity, set up committee to address issues, to raise concerns, to resolve contradictions. If member states and the citizens therein feel that ECOWAS have been doing this, then they will see ECOWAS as partner in progress rather than a club where presidents and head of state meet to protect only the interests of the president and not the yearnings and aspirations of the people. That is one. Two, my position has always been that the kind of textbook democracy that we practice in Africa may not necessarily be good for us after all. You know, democracy is not like Coca-Cola. I'm citing here. It is black. It has, red content is inside bottle. And all over the world, we are taking the same democracy. I don't think democracy should be cast in iron. It shouldn't be sacrosanct. It shouldn't be immutable. The democratic structure of each country should now be reworked in line with social, political, and cultural peculiarities of each people. I think when democracy in Africa is reworked to the extent that it is adjusting
So,
to the
Prof,
social, political, and cultural peculiarities, it's going to work better.
so
As it
Prof,
is now, yes.
if I'm correct, all of these you've mentioned can be said to be internal factors. But how much of external factors or forces contribute to the rising coups in West Africa?
Well, I think if the external factors are strong, they will probably not be able to achieve much in destabilizing African states if the internal factors are not culpable with it, and that is the logic of this relationship that we are talking about. People will resist any external force if internally they have belief in the system. If internally they see the system as their own, as autochthonous to them, they see themselves as stakeholders, they will resist any external force. A micro demonstration of that is what you see in Niger. External forces in the light of ECOWAS and other, interested organs, AU and the rest, were threatening to invade Niger. And internally, the people are saying, you can't try it. If you try it, we're going to put our lives on the streets to ensure that you don't get through this at all. I think that's the power of nationalism. In West Africa, as of now, we are merely trying to build nation states, that are not in any way nations yet. We need to build the citizens who will come together and whip up that strong sentiment that will give them the spirit of nationalism. When that spirit is strong within West Africa, External forces will always try. There's nothing abnormal in that. People come, countries come, international organizations come with their own interest. But the internal force, if it is coercive or relatively coercive, will resist any external force that is coming from anywhere. I think the idea is to build the people, build citizens, not members of the public. Most of the countries in ECOWAS do not have citizens. They have members of the public because the government does not treat them the way citizens are treated. I mean, look at Nigeria, for instance. I mean, Nigeria is a part of ECOWAS. My sister, the minimum wage in Nigeria is 30,000 naira. Now, the body called government that signs the law to say that that is the minimum wage of an average Nigeria, we then sit down somewhere and hold a meeting and say, a message has been sent to your email for the token you are going to take for 2 days, 3 days holiday. And that token runs into 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 million, unmentionable million. Who in Nigeria will see himself as a citizen? The person will see themselves as just members of the public that are used to legitimize the stay of these people in power through the ritual of the ballot box called election.
So,
I think
Prof,
people need, yes.
So, Prof, sadly we're running out of time. But before I let you go, if the situation in Niger remains, what multiplier effect will it have on democracy in West Africa?
Well, it's already having it. We have made the point very clear here that people in West Africa are losing trust in democracy. And the reason is simple. When democracy was gaining ground, it came with a series of expectations. Democracy will mean freedom, it will mean prosperity, it will mean sense of belonging, it will mean national interest, it will mean citizenship. Now, with the practice of democracy in West Africa especially, how secured are the people? Do you have citizens or just members of the public? Do you have a nation? Do you not have identity crisis? Do you not have elimination of one class to support the other? If the answer to all these is yes, or a very weak no at that, then you get the reason behind the failure of democracy in West Africa. I think scholars must begin to interrogate this. Scholars must begin to conduct research works on this to ensure that ECOWAS, which is the body that is responsible for uniting these West African countries, does more than just these reactionary activities of just sending soldiers or making statements whenever there is coup. ECOWAS as a body, like EU, must be interested in the lives, in the yearnings and aspirations of citizens within the member state.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is always a pleasure having you on the program, and thank you so much for always finding time. I've been speaking with a political scientist and a social professor at the Institute of African and Diaspora Studies, University of Lagos, Professor Kayode Eesuola. Tonight, we're focused on the recent developments in Niger Republic. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you.
Have a nice evening. Thank you.
And you too. And thank you so much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on Twitter at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Good night.